Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We're going to be going over tips on how to enjoy the holidays with your aging loved ones. So we're pretty excited about this one since we are now into the holidays, just right around the corner. And our webinars are held every first Thursday of the month. So please stay tuned. This is going to be for both this month and through December. So stay tuned for our 2024 calendar lineup that you'll be getting in the beginning, probably the end of December. So thank you all for coming. My name is Paige Fairbanks-Gunn. I'm the Regional Relationship Manager for Koelsch Senior Communities in Arizona. I've been working with seniors since 1997 and have worked with over 4,000 families. Koelsch Communities operates in 8 different states, and we offer independent living, assisted living, memory care, also respite care, day stay, and lots of assisted living and independent memory care resources, such as our lovely co-host today. We also have our national caregiving speaker and consultant. She provides a path to relieve the fear, anxiety, and overwhelm that family members experience when a loved one is diagnosed with dementia. She's the founder of Alzheimer's Family Consulting. She's a certified senior advisor, a certified dementia practitioner, and also certified in dementia care. She's also the author of the highly rated It's Not That Simple, Helping Families Navigate the Alzheimer's Journey, which is based on Pam's 14 dementia journey and Alzheimer's caregiving journey with both of her parents. Please welcome Pam Ostrowski.
Thanks very much, Paige, and thank you to Koelsch Communities for sponsoring this important session. You know, one of the things that we kind of kicked off before we hit record was, gosh, you know, Thanksgiving is just a few weeks away, and then there's Christmas, and you know, there's gift buying, and there's food and planning meals, and then shopping, and so many things are going on. And then on top of that, when you have an aging loved one as a spouse or as a parent or any loved one, you know, relationship, trying to bring them into the holidays can add to your stress and your mental health. And honestly, it affects them too. So we're going to talk a little bit about mental health and well-being. We're going to talk about tips and guidance around how do you survive and thrive in the holiday season when you have people who are older, that are aging. And you know, a lot of times this can be a sad time of the year if someone is missing another individual, whether that person is has passed, or whether that person is might be in memory care, wherever they might be, or if you're an out-of-state adult child, you know, you're might be feeling the pressure and the guilt of not being present at the holidays where your loved one is. So we're going to get started with the questions that we get from people just like yourselves who need some help and have questions about the holidays. That doesn't mean that we're restricting to these questions. So what we want you to do is type in the chat what your question is, or if you have a question, just say, I have a question, and we'll bring you on so that you can speak. Everybody's video is shut off, so don't worry about that. You are also muted, but if you have a question, type it in. Okay, let's get started. So Paige, we'll start out with asking you the question. So the holidays can be so stressful. They can also be lonely. My loved one lives in assisted living out of state, and we cannot be with her this year. This happens a lot. I hear this one a lot too. Mm-hmm. What's it like at the holidays in the different living environments?
Yes, so that's a great question, and a very often comment we get from families. It is a very lonely time for our elderly and our parents. But when they're living in a community type setting, an independent living or an assisted living and memory care, the whole gamut of senior housing, it's a great place to be. And the reason why I say that is just because you can't go and see them, they have lots of different relationships going on in the community. But what's happening is there's Christmas lights going on. We have Christmas carolers coming into the building. They're having fun decorating doors. We do in Koelsch Communities, in all of our communities, we do a big decorating of your door contest. So there's all sorts of fun, different activities going on, not to mention also holiday entertainment that comes in. We have kids that come in. We have all sorts of Christmas holiday music of entertainment that comes in. So they're really surrounded by a lot of love and so many wonderful holiday moments of joy that can hopefully help you as a loved one and or a spouse or a child kind of help lessen your stress and anxiety of the guilt.
Yeah, and I know I would actually travel internationally during the holidays because I trusted my mom being at Rock Creek in Surprise, Arizona. And I knew that she was happy and enjoying her time. And we'll get into ways to handle the holidays from a timing and celebration perspective. Now that's one of the things that we promised, was to tell you, how and when can I coordinate these celebrations. But it's important to realize that, yes, that time together is precious and important. However, so is you spending time with your own family and celebrating in your own traditions. So it does come down to, and I know that my mom and dad enjoyed a lot of the cookie decorating, or different caroling was my dad's favorite. Sitting and listening, not singing.
Yes.
So when the little ones come by, so I remember one of mom's favorite things was at Halloween. What they did at Rock Creek is they got a bunch of candy, and then they got little bags, and everybody in memory care would fill the bags, and then tie a bow if they could, or if they handed them off to the person who could tie a bow. And then the kids would come in, and each resident would get a certain number to hand out to the kids. And it was participating in the normalcy of life, which is so important with memory care. We don't want to, when you hear about institutionalization, that's such a harsh word, when it really is building familial bonds with the community members so that they feel loved and they feel engaged and involved, and making new traditions and enjoying those things while still, they're still in there. So they do remember handing out candy at Halloween. They do remember baking cookies. And I have a picture of my mom with a chef's hat on. Again, this was at Rock Creek, and she's holding a bowl like this, and she's got a stirrer in her hand, and she's really focused. The cookie dough must have been kind of tough. And then making cookies. And honest to gosh, she did that for decades. And so to have the opportunity to participate that way is just amazing. And so sometimes, like, I would come in and they'd be doing an activity or listening to holiday music. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm interfering with your fun.
Right.
Sometimes I felt left out, and I didn't have to worry about her. So, not everything is sunshine and light, but during the holidays, I think, at least my experience has been, most communities do a good job. And if they don't, step in, volunteer, give them some ideas of things that they need to do or should do. And, Paige, I think you have help from the hospice companies and all different resources who will volunteer their time to come in and do activities and that are either holiday related or are just fun to do, like making gifts, painting things so that they can give a gift at Christmas time. Again, another traditional holiday type of activity. And that's what we're really trying to do, is make everybody happy by engaging in those things that brought us joy when we were, decades ago. So,
And
all
it's
right.
funny you say that, Pam. I was meeting with a hospice and home health today, and we really do lean on our partners in a community setting, and they come to us and say, hey, we want to be involved in your your Christmas bazaar. We want to be involved in your Thanksgiving holiday, champagne brunch that you're going to be having in your independent living. So, they really want to spend time and really, be able to be there and have those one-on-one visits and participate with all the residents on all different levels, independent, assisted, and memory care. So,
yeah, it's really nice to have a group of people and everybody's in a good mood. Everybody is trying to engage and socialize and have fun. So to the person who asked that question, what does it feel like? What does it look like? It's pretty gosh darn amazing. I'm kind of thinking of moving in on November 1st and then moving back out on January 2nd.
holidays are the best time.
Exactly.
And Arizona's holidays just
Valentine's
spread
Day.
over into, it through May 1st because the weather is so nice. So we're doing a lot of stuff outside and going on trips and, doing lots of fun things outside, which is really nice.
Yeah. And, one of the things that you had talked about was pumpkin painting and then making Thanksgiving turkeys out of pumpkins. And then I remember my mom going on a Christmas light tour where, that was something we used to do when I was a kid. We would drive around the neighborhoods and look at all the beautiful Christmas lights. And then, just there's so many different activities that they will enjoy. So, the reason I like this question because it gives you, our listeners, the chance to understand that this is not a sad time for them. Especially if you have someone in memory care, they're just about living in the moment. And so we encourage you to do the same. And you know what? Come and help out, help your loved one paint a gift for your grandchild or help them bake cookies. You can always come and join in if you're available. So our current questioner was actually out of state, but absolutely participate. It'll make you happy too.
Yes.
Okay. So did you say there's?
We do have a question from Julie. It says, is there a diagnostic test to determine Alzheimer's?
The way that it's determined right now is through an MRI and you always want to get your MRI, at least every, 5 years, no matter who you are, because what they're doing is they're comparing the brain size at 60, 65, 70, 75. And it's natural for our brains to shrink. That's just a thing. That's one of the reasons why we have difficulty with some memory capabilities. So the MRI will show brain shrinkage as well as dark spots. And that's where the brain cells are dying as a result of being attacked by the amyloid protein plaques and the tau tangles. And so that's one diagnostic. And this is really important because people get confused when someone says, oh, there's a blood test for Alzheimer's. No, there's a blood test for Alzheimer's genetic markers.
Mutation,
So the APOE4 genetic marker, it's not hereditary, it's genetic. There's a difference. Fine line, but there is a difference. And so it's in the genes. It's not something that, just because your mother had it, you're going to have it. But in addition to that, if you have one marker, you have a higher risk than if you didn't have any markers. If you have two markers, you have a higher risk than if you only had one. Kind of makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. So in that particular situation, though, it does not guarantee that the individual will have Alzheimer's. So there's things that you can do for that person in their lifestyle: remove stress, eat nutritionally, no junk food, no sugar, limited to no alcohol, get lots of exercise, keep your heart pumping, keep the blood going to your brain. Think of it that way. Get sleep. So many people, as we age, I hear these stories of people saying, oh, I went to bed at 1 and got up at 5. And it's like, yeah, your brain didn't get a chance. Your brain and your body did not get a chance to restore and recover and get rid of the toxins that are residing in the brain and in the body. And as a result, that accumulation can create health problems of all sorts, not just Alzheimer's. As far as other diagnostics, getting a PET scan, PET, those are really expensive though. So And then you have to ask yourself the question, why do you want to get diagnosed? And my answer to that, to my clients, is we want a benchmark. We want to know, look, it's looking pretty close to the fact that because it's never 100%. The doctors try, right? But we have to understand that it's not 100% guarantee. So if you do all the right things for your health, you might have prolonged cognitive capability, or you might not. It's one of those really weird variable diseases where we don't know very much about it. And as a result, it's important to realize that it's not a doomsday message. It's okay, I have something, I need to change my behaviors, I need to do things differently, to waylay perhaps the onset of some symptoms. And then once you are diagnosed, it's not about how, oh, life is horrible and everything's going to fall apart. We have no timeline for Alzheimer's. So it's, Alzheimer's Association will say it's 4 to 8 years lifespan after a diagnosis, but, you just don't know. Like I was on a 14-year journey. I know people on 20-year journeys. I know people have had no symptoms and have been fine for, 6 years after their diagnosis. So the important thing is to make sure that you have a benchmark and that therefore your neurologist can determine what kind of progress you're having. So the other thing that primary care physicians use, but it's kind of it can be, it's used typically for someone with mid-stage Alzheimer's or dementia in general, which is the mini memory state exam, otherwise known as the MMSE, MMSE, and the MOCA, which is the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. And those are two different task-oriented types of tests that basically demonstrate what your loved one can do and what they can't do. But it doesn't mean they have Alzheimer's. So it's a cognitive test. Both of them are cognitive tests. They are not Alzheimer's tests. So it's really important to differentiate between those nuances to ensure that you don't go out and panic, because that's not what we want. Okay. Hopefully that helped you, Julie. All right, Paige, I think you got a question for me.
Okay. So I feel guilty that I'm not spending Thanksgiving and Christmas with my mom in a memory care community. How do I feel better about it?
So this is a question I get frequently from spouses as well as adult children, which is the case in this question. And so there's days where the guilt, you can use all the tools and tips that you've read about, and you still don't feel good about not spending enough time with them. And what happens, this is what we have to realize, is it's on us. It's us that's thinking that. Your loved one lives in the moment. And when you're with them and you're doing something fun, like, wrapping presents or painting something or listening to music together, they're enjoying that and they're enjoying the fact that you're with them. But when you leave, the next thing they're going to do is, whether it's having a snack or going to the dinner, or going into the room to watch a movie, that's where they're there then. So a lot of times people I know some of my clients will say, oh, well, I spent 3 hours with mom today. And I said, and what's your expectation of that time? Are you thinking she's going to remember that you spent that much time with her? Well, maybe. And that's not the nature of the disease. So we have to kind of check in and do what feels best for us. So in this case, she's not going to see her mom either at Thanksgiving or Christmas. So the question is, what would make her feel not guilty? What would make her feel good about this? Is it a phone call? Is it a video chat? Is it planning to see her before a holiday? And we're going to talk more about this in a minute, before or after one of the holidays. And so using that creativity, knowing that their temporal skills are pretty close to zero. So you can, I hate to say it this way, but you can kind of get away with things. What have you seen, Paige?
Yeah, I think that families, especially in memory care, it's the guilt. In independent living, well, in all of our communities, we celebrate on the holiday, but we also do a family celebration a few days before. So it is about that time where it is creating the moment. And especially if they have dementia, they don't have any concept of time or day until you tell them. I mean, it could be Christmas every day. And that's a wonderful thing. We're living Christmas, or, we're living the holidays every day. So being able to kind of get past that, like Pam said, and understanding that you have to kind of really adjust your expectations of the visit and understand it really is about creating moments of joy. And it doesn't matter if it's on 2 days before the holiday or 2 days after the holiday. In their mind, you're there, they're there, you're there together, and you're spending time together and
You're having
celebrating in
fun
the moment
too,
and having fun.
I mean, my mom used to watch me while I would decorate her door. And there's nothing more fun and festive that, because my mom was in a wheelchair for the last 5 years of her life. And we would just tootle around and look at all the pretty doors, and I'd play with a little of the fluff that, people had put on their doors. And it was festive. It made you feel happy no matter who you were. And so that was a really powerful experience. So Paige, let me ask you our next question. So residents typically have different needs, right? So we have a situation here where the woman's parents said that the mom loves to do crafts and do some of the stuff that we've just talked about for activities, but they're in assisted living, and the dad wants to just stay in the room and watch TV. And the mom doesn't feel comfortable leaving him alone because then she feels like she's abandoning him. But she would really rather be doing things that bring her joy, like doing crafts. So how do you handle that type of situation where you've got a couple in assisted living and they have different needs?
And I think this is where you really you kind of focus and lean on the community, the staff, getting the staff involved that know your loved one best. And maybe dad really wants to stay in the room, and maybe there's someone else that can try to convince him to come out or go for a walk with, the daughter or the son while mom is doing crafts, and taking him around the community. So trying to get the loved ones, the staff involved with your loved one, and really making sure that the staff understand who each one of your loved ones is and who they are as a person. Because I know that's going to be my husband. He's going to want to watch TV and sports while I'm going to want to go out and, go tootle around and be social. So how do you create the moments of joy for both of them? And that's where the communities do come into play, because most of them, and I know with our communities, they all have such a variety of activities that there are things going on. And maybe if dad wants to watch TV and he's watching football or wants to watch certain sports, there's a lot of sports going on right now, especially over the holidays with football. Can we bring dad down to the common area where he's watching with other men, while mom is off in the other room doing crafts? So I think it's really leaning on, the staff and getting them involved and making sure that they do know your loved one and getting them involved. And our Koelsch Communities, we do a very, very in-depth social biography that really talks about who they are as a person, what they did for, all their, most of their adult life, what was their career, what were their hobbies, what kind of music do they like, what do they not like, so we know what to avoid. So really just diving in deep to really know what we can do to try to accommodate both of them. But utilizing the care staff is huge. I mean, you're paying for the assisted living, utilize the staff.
Yeah, and the same really is true with memory care. I've had people say, mom or dad won't leave the room. And, in Koelsch, though, in memory care, the doors are shut. Like you are busy and occupied from, 7 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, so that you don't have sundowning. Sundowning, in my opinion, I will say, is largely because they've been bored and not stimulated all day long. And by that point, they're restless, like any of us would be, from sitting around and watching TV. And so they start to get anxious or angry or frustrated, and they don't know what to do with those emotions. And so people say, oh, well, they're sundowning. And it's like, well, what have they been doing? So I love Koelsch that they do that, where, they'll take people to their bathrooms to do the necessary things that you do in a bathroom. But they also, bring them back out and, bring them into an environment where they can be stimulated, and at least even visually. So stimulation doesn't mean you're doing an activity necessarily, although that's a good thing. But even just visual and audible stimulation of just sitting and my mom may not be able to, as she got progressed, she was not able to do as many of the crafts that she used, like the cookie the baking, but she would watch and she would laugh and she'd get, kind of a kick out of things. So we have to keep in mind that there's lots of ways to persuade people to do things. And one of my clients was saying, I can't get dad out of the room. And I said, well, how are you getting, what conversation are you having with him? So in assisted living where he was, she said, well, I'm telling him, Dad, the doctor said you need to walk. And so let's get out and go for a walk. And I said, would that work on you? Which is always a good test. Would it work on you if I told you what to do? Your adult child is telling you what to do. Yeah, no, that's not going to go down well. But instead, if you said, Dad, my doctor said that I need some exercise and I hate walking alone, would you do your favorite daughter a favor and go for a walk with me?
Yeah.
Totally different story. You guilt dad into the father-daughter thing. He turns off the TV and off you go. And so I saw her a week afterwards and she said, oh my gosh, he and I are walking champions now because I need to be healthy. He wants me to be healthy. So that's how she got him to walk. So, it comes down to unique situations in each individual. I don't want to broad brush and say that that's going to work for everyone, but that's the reason why for those people who are here, I offer a free 30-minute private consult. So you bring your question, I'm having problems with this. And we do a private one-on-one. Just go to my website and we'll get you signed up to do that. So it's at Pam at itsnotthatsimple.com or go to my website at alzheimersfamilyconsulting.com. So I will put that in the chat in a second because I know we have more questions.
I love that, Pam. It's true that that was such a success story with that daughter and dad, because she validated his feelings, and a lot of it is validation. And then you just turn it around on you and say, well, this is what was suggested to me. And, would you do that with me, please?
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
It really is. Yeah. It's about emphasizing what you need in order for, and everybody wants to help, right? And as we age, all of us age, we are finding it challenging, especially with adult children who are more independent. You try to find a way where you can fit into their lives. How can I help you? When you were little, there was tons of things for me to do. And now that I'm older and I'm struggling a little bit, I've lost my purpose in your life. I've lost my ability to engage. And honestly, that can really cause a lot of depression. So by you saying, I need your help with, or, I need to do this, would you please come with me so I'm not lonely? Those are ways that you can rekindle that relationship and give them the gift of helping you as their adult child. And so I totally agree with you. And thank you for pointing that out, because that stimulated another thought. So yeah, good stuff.
Okay. So, for Pam, we're having a house full of family for Thanksgiving from ages 1 to 93. I'm worried that my kids may be too much for my elderly mother. Plus, the guys are going to have the TV on loud in the front room watching football. What suggestions do you have for making this an enjoyable holiday for everyone?
Oof. Wow. So the assumption usually is, oh, they'll love, being with the baby, and they'll love seeing everyone together. And the bottom line is, as we age, especially if you have any hearing issues, which is fairly likely these days, it can be really overstimulating and frankly overwhelming, and any of those emotions create frustration and potential anger. So they may act out or get upset if they're not given a quiet space. And I will be very honest with you, I'm hypersensitive to sound. So I would be sitting with that 93-year-old in a quiet space, hiding from the noise and the children. And so what's important is, if you're bringing your loved ones over to your house, which it sounds like in this case that's happening, find a spot, a sacred spot, a safe spot, where people over the age of, say 65 or 70 can kind of go and hang out, chit chat together, reminisce about previous holidays. Remember when, Johnny fell off the horse and ended up, ruining Thanksgiving, or whatever the story is, so that they can relate to each other in their own cohort. Just like when kids go and play, they don't want to play with the 15-year-old. They want to play, if they're 7 or 8, they want to play with the other 7 or 8-year-olds. So allow those groupings to happen, or encourage them to happen. So have activities. So if you only have one person who's up in the years, like the 93-year-old, what was her favorite thing to do, or his favorite thing to do during the holidays? Was it to hang around with the boys and watch a football game, even if he can't hear very well, or maybe not see very well, but he's with the group? So you really have to watch for those visual cues as to what that person, are they laughing? Are they having fun? Are they shutting down, which is usually what happens with someone who can't hear well. They just sit back and they can't see, and there's conversations going back and forth in front of them and they can't follow them, and it just takes away from the experience. So check in with all of your people who are, now I would say 65 and older, but maybe you choose what the age group is, but check in with them. And then you also have to remember, if you're bringing someone with any cognitive impairment home to your home, you need to label the bathroom with a picture of a toilet so they know where they're going. You should potentially hire a caregiver to accompany them and be their trusted person. So that trusted person can go get water, they can take them to the bathroom, they can take them to their quiet or safe space. And it just relieves you as the host to get busy with everything else you've got going on. So those are some suggestions. What are your ideas, Paige?
I love the hiring, the independent setting, and the assisted setting, and even the independent for a senior that is at home, that is, maybe not the most social. I think definitely hiring a caregiver to kind of have that one-on-one with them. But yeah, pairing them up, definitely. Having a quiet space, but also if you have a loved one at home and they're independent and they don't have any cognitive issues going on, just ask them, Mom, Dad, we've got all these people coming in, or look at suggested kind of, maybe separating your holiday festivities, because I know that some, they can get very overwhelmed, and being able to provide a nice, quiet and anxiety-free area for them is going to be what is going to be most enjoyable for them and for you, because you don't want to create a high anxiety situation for them. So that's kind of for more of the independent assisted. For dementia care folks, depending on where your loved one is in their journey, I tend to lean on the side of, if they're still pretty high functioning and doing okay, yes, I think it's fine, but still provide the space. But if they are in a community and they're pretty progressed in their journey, I would not probably remove them from the community to bring them into a home of a large setting. It just disrupts their routine. You'll see a lot of more confusion going on, extreme anxiety. It's just one of those things that when you pull someone with dementia that's moderate to late stage, out of their routine, it's more of a detriment than it is a positive situation.
And
So,
please appreciate that. I mean, what you just
yes.
said is so important, because what we talked about earlier was guilt. And with
Yes.
guilt, you do things that you probably shouldn't. Like, oh, well, I want mom to be with me. So I'm going to take her out of the community. I'm going to take her over to my house. We're going to spend the day.
The
No, you're
day.
not. You're going to do good to get 2 hours.
Yeah.
So pick your 2 hours if you're going
Right.
to do that. And they're mid to, or if they're early to mild to early cognitive impairment,
Mhm.
then they can go. But after that, I would highly advise that you go to them, not the other way
Yes.
around. And don't bring your
Simplify the
entire
expectations.
family into memory care, because you'll overstimulate everybody there.
Yeah.
Just, pick and choose the days, spread this out. The holidays are holidays. They're not
Right.
just one day. So
Right.
spread it out and spread the joy. Now, Paige, you and I had talked earlier about number of guests, ideal number of guests. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, the number of guests, I would definitely, maybe you have a huge Catholic family, or you're doubling up on people like to kind of share their holidays together. So sometimes multiple families will come together. I would suggest probably less guests for your elders are going to be probably a better outcome. So maybe stagger the time, maybe bring mom 2 hours before everybody gets there. And then maybe the Smith family comes at 4, mom comes at 2, and then the other rest of the guests come at 6 o'clock. So kind of stagger those times, because again, you're going to be missing away from getting that one-on-one time with them. And that's really what they want.
Yeah.
They really
And
want
to
that.
watch, to
Yes.
observe. So
Yeah.
Julie asked a good question about sometimes family members and friends can feel awkward about being around someone with dementia. How can you ease that awkwardness? Part of that lies with us. So I have a tip sheet on, how to celebrate the holidays and still enjoy them when you have a loved one who's might have some issues, either mobility wise or cognitively. And one of the things that I point out is, don't do anything to embarrass them. Don't talk to them like they're 5 years old. Do not cut their food. If they need food that is already pre-cut, take their plate, make it up, take it to the kitchen where no one is observing, cut up the food, and then bring the plate back for that individual. Make sure that the glassware is light enough to pick up, so they can have, maybe you get everybody a different colored glass, don't be a stickler for color. And so that the lightest one is the one that your loved one has. And so that eliminates some of the awkwardness that, people say, oh, well, look at how dad or mom isn't able to do all of those things. But the other thing that I include in my tip sheet is that you should let everybody know mom or dad is coming, and they're struggling with memory, and they're struggling, whatever they're struggling with. Please be appreciative and respectful. Tell your children to be respectful, and also prepare them for the fact that and I don't advise you do this, if you bring someone with mild cognitive mid-stage dementia to your house, they have lost their filter by then. And so if there is a screaming baby or a kid that's not behaving, they're very likely to say something that they wouldn't have said, 5 or 10 years ago. Like, can't you shut that kid up? And
it's true.
And so that becomes really awkward and difficult to, kind of clean up afterwards. So let's avoid that by preparing everyone, letting them know, and asking them, look, if you're bringing your children, please monitor how they interact with mom or dad. Make sure that they understand, and you don't have to use the word dementia, but just say, be kind and considerate of the older people that are here. So that would be my thought. What are your thoughts on avoiding awkwardness when the family knows there's someone with dementia attending?
Definitely prepare everyone that the family member does have memory loss, and really focus on complimenting them, talking to them about, giving them questions that are in the moment. And maybe, well, maybe not in the moment, but maybe talking about, the past, stories about them, and say, oh, we used to have so much fun together. And oh gosh, I remember when you used to bake cookies in the house. Talk about old memories that they are probably going to remember, that will kind of jog memories for them, because their short-term memory is much worse than their long-term memory. So kind of bringing up old memories and things, that just good memories that you had with them growing up. And maybe mom was the one that did all the cookies, or maybe she was the house that, all the teenagers got to go to and hang out at the house. And, and she was the mom that she was the house pad that you got to go to when you guys were younger. Or she let you run around the neighborhood all the time. And maybe, your parents you were going to get in trouble, but she kind of, covered for you. Some of those fun things. But just not bringing up, I wouldn't ask them, like, oh, what did you do yesterday? Or, oh my gosh, well, do you remember what happened at the doctor? And
when did you get your hair cut? It looks good. And they're like, I don't even know I got my hair cut.
Right. It's
what
just
are
like,
you
oh my
talking
gosh,
about?
your hair looks lovely. Oh, you look so nice in your
or
outfit today.
what they're wearing. Look at a shirt or a dress or whatever it might be, commenting and complimenting that way.
This would be a perfect time for, depending on their level of dementia, this would be a perfect time to grab maybe a teenage grandkid, or, a young grandkid that's maybe 10 to 12, 14 years old, or a young adult, to sit down with them if they used to like to craft and do an activity.
And that's actually the next question. So let's bounce to that. Yeah. So the person said, we do a lot and always have done a lot of cookie decorating as part of our family holiday traditions. I'd love to bring my 90-year-old mother back to the house to help. Is that a bad idea? Now, she doesn't indicate if the person is more assisted living capability, or if she has cognitive impairment. And that's also an important thing. By the way, I want to mention that cognitive impairment and memory loss are two different things. So when you talk about cognitive impairment, it includes memory loss, but it also includes the inability to remember how to do tasks. So when you put that plate down in front of mom and dad, or mom or dad, that's the reason why you might want to cut things up, is because then they can just pick up their fork and stab something and put it in their mouth. They also have mimicry behavior. So one of the reasons why communities are so great for ensuring someone has good nutrition is because they watch each other. And if the first person picks up a fork and eats a pea, you better believe that the rest of the table picks up a fork and stabs something, whether it's a pea or something else, and does the exact same thing. So make sure that not everybody's just sitting around waiting for someone to start, because your loved one doesn't know any better. And we have to take into account that tasks could be difficult. And so you have to take all of that into account. So sorry, I jumped on that. But,
not at all.
But what do you think about this idea of bringing the 90-year-old mom back to do cookie decorating? You're like, what if she doesn't remember how to do it?
Well, again, like you said, if mom is independent, no cognitive impairment going on, no memory loss going on all day long, if mom wants to come and she's 90 and she's a whippersnapper, yes, go for it. If they're physically frail and maybe not a lot of memory loss, even the physically frail can be a little bit overwhelming, because you got to think about, okay, what if mom's in a wheelchair but is able to get up, and she's in an assisted living, and you're picking her up and bringing her home? You got to think about, okay, you got to get her up, get her in the car, unlock the wheelchair, put it in the trunk or the back seat, unload everything. It's kind of a lot of seniors that have physical disabilities get overwhelmed as well. And as they age, they just become very fearful, and there's lots more anxiety. So think about, is it really the best setting to pull mom out of her setting where she is? And maybe she's in an assisted living at this point. Maybe it might be a better idea to bring the cookie cutting and the cookies to her. And you guys go down to the, the nice craft room or the library or the bistro area or the dining room, and just take a corner and you guys have your own little cookie cutting session in the comfort of our own home, which is the community.
Right. And that's a very good point. And that takes me back to one of our earlier questions, that the beauty of having a community, which is really their home, is so much better than them sitting in their home that they were in for 30 or 40 years and being alone. The worst thing for anyone aging across the board is living alone, especially during the holidays.
Yes.
So, I'm going to throw you a curveball here, Paige, because this isn't one of the questions, but what do you think of, or is it even a thing, about families who have a loved one who lives at home by themselves in isolation? Can they come for a respite stay during the holidays to kind of cheer them up? How does that work?
We really do promote our respite stays, and this is a perfect opportunity for folks to come in and, when people come into our communities and they're like, oh my gosh, I just want mom to have one more Christmas at home. And I'm like, but why not bring them here when they can be with all these people and celebrate and learning, having new friendships and not being alone? Absolutely, they can try a respite stay. We do 1 to 2 days of respite stay, complimentary in our independent living, our assisted living, and also our memory care, where they can try it out, kind of try before you buy, and put them in that setting and see what they think. And see, depending on how social they are and what type of person they are, you'd be surprised at how much there's a lot of anxiety that comes off of them, because they didn't want to be the one to really institute, oh my gosh, I've got to go somewhere, or even admit that they are lonely, and even admit that they're starting to struggle in their own home. So
Yeah.
oftentimes it's, it's having those conversations and just saying, hey, why don't we go, or trying an activity. Hey, look at the activity calendar. Let's go over here to, the park at Copper Creek. And oh my gosh, they're going on Ollie the trolley with going to see the, the different lights, and they're going to go have hot cocoa and baked donuts and all sorts of fun stuff. So they can absolutely do a respite stay.
Excellent. I just wanted to check on that, because what a great way to expose them to happiness.
Yes.
Because happiness is not happening at home watching Wheel of Fortune. So back to the cookie decorating and bringing your, someone who's frail, you brought that up. Most homes have stairs, and if they have to go upstairs to use the bathroom, or, that gets to be awkward. We're not even talking cognitive impairment at this point, but it's like, all right, how does your loved one get up the stairs or back down the stairs, or entrance? If you have a sunken living room, they might not see the sunken living room, because as we get older, our peripheral vision narrows. And so they might not see things that you assume they can see, because you typically think of your loved ones like they're 20 years younger than they are. And you know what? They like to think that too, but the body is not 20 years younger. And so we need to have the foresight to, to predict where things can go wrong, and to either bring the party to them, as Paige mentioned, or to take that into account. And maybe you have it, like if it's your house doesn't have stairs, but the person who wanted to host the cookie decorating, she does have stairs, or he does have stairs, then just switch the location of the party to a level place, a place where the toilet is easy to access, because frailty can be a really scary thing. Because when someone feels unstable, or they trip on your area rug that is there for the snuffle mat for your dog, then they fall, and then you have 1, guilt because they fell at your house, 2, potentially hospitalization, surgery, and rehab. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer on this, but these things happen. So we need to think about, all right, is decorating the cookies at my house so very important that I'm willing to take those risks? Or wouldn't it be better to just, go to the community or do a respite stay and do the activities with your loved one to show them that you're not abandoning them, you're opening a world to them. And
Right.
it looks like we have a question, Paige.
Okay. Okay. Says, if you have a loved one that recently started at an assisted living or memory care, is it then not a good idea to bring them back to their old home? It may set them back going back to their home environment, and not want them to go, for them not wanting to go back to their residential setting. I absolutely highly recommend that if someone has moved to an assisted living and or a memory care assisted living, do not bring them back to the home.
I agree.
Do not. Because what happens is unfortunately, everything that you've done to get them there, now you're bringing it, you're basically tearing the Band-Aid off and you're reversing back. That's a really, really difficult thing. But no, try to, if there's dementia if there's dementia and memory loss, just redirect, try to avoid conversations with the house. That's a tough one, but no, do not bring them back.
It's a great question because
It's a hard one.
It is. And so this is where I work with my clients to talk about communications and word choice and how you're going to have that conversation, because otherwise, you're in a situation where, say they're in assisted living, for a reason. So then if they go back and say, well, I want to go back to the house. Well, usually that's a spousal situation, where the one spouse is living at home. And so now you have the opportunity to say, this place is much more fun than the house, let's just stay here and have a good time. And usually if you look underneath the hood on that question, they want to go back because they have good memories there. And so why not say, I'll tell you what, it's because they're missing something. So talk to the director of nursing, talk to the activities director, talk to your other family members, and get this person to feel like where they're at is the best place ever. And you'll get community support for that. And if you get family support for it, then they don't really care about what's back home. And again, every situation is unique. So we're not, we're giving some broad information and tips, but if you want to talk more about it, feel free to reach out to me or to Paige. Okay, next question, Paige.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Can your holiday stress carry over to your loved one? If so, what suggestions do you have for avoiding this?
So yes, it absolutely can transfer over. It's just like any other being. When someone feels stress from another person, whether it's a friend, a spouse, another family member, an adult child, a young child, stress is transferable. It's not contagious. Maybe we call it contagious, right?
It can be.
Yeah. And so, especially with someone with cognitive impairment, if you walk into their environment and, say you're doing a craft with them and you're all fidgety and looking at your phone and looking at your watch, don't go.
Right.
You're not doing anybody any favors by forcing yourself to interrupt your schedule, to stress out in front of your loved one, because then they get stressed out. Yes. And a person with dementia doesn't have coping skills for being stressed. No. And so the way that they deal with it is they get frustrated, they get angry, they might even act out, or they'll get sad and shut down. So don't bring your stress to the party. That's my thought. What about you, Paige?
Totally agree. And holidays and stress can be so overrated. I've taken it to myself because holidays can be stressful. And I just tell myself, you know what? When I'm going to see my family members, I have to really readjust my expectations of everybody else.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think we all have this problem, by the way. Right. It's not just with the aging loved ones.
Right. It's everybody. So it's, how can we eliminate that stress? And for you too, you having to develop a whole plan to get your loved one to your house if it's really not the right setting. Eliminate that. You just have to readjust and simplify your expectations as a whole,
And
because
frankly, take a breath.
that's right, exactly, because no matter where you are with them, as long as you're with them and they're with you, that's where the moments of love and joy are gonna be created.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, we do get wrapped up in the holidays, and we do get stressed out because we want to give that perfect gift. We want to meet with all of our friends and toast to the holidays, and we put the tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves. So I would suggest that, you know, look in the mirror and say, okay, you know, do a check-in. How am I feeling? If I'm feeling stressed, I think I'll just, you know, maybe go sit in the corner with a chamomile tea and just spend that time that I would have spent with my loved one, just kind of, you know, writing down my lists, or, you know, trying to empty my brain of what's causing stress. And sometimes that will help, but, yeah, please don't bring it to anybody else, because that's just not fair. So Paige, one last question for you.
Yes.
And I like this question a lot. Is it the right time to have a difficult aging conversation? Meaning things like living arrangements, observations about cognitive impairment, any of those types of things. Is it a good idea to have those with your parents over the holidays? This person lives out of town and they're going to be visiting their parents during the holidays. And, you know, when would be the best time for them to have that conversation?
Well, I definitely think that, you know, for kids that are living out of town and they're flying here from out of town to see their loved one in Arizona, sometimes it can be a shock, unfortunately, because they may have not seen mom or dad in the last year or two. And now, oh my gosh, what's going on? They sound wonderful over the phone, but now we've got problem. Definitely don't do it on the day. Maybe don't do it the day after, but figure out a time where you do have that face-to-face time, because if you do live thousands of miles away, you need to probably have that conversation during your trip, because something can and will happen that you know, you could probably try to avoid. But having some of those difficult conversations where, you know, reach out to someone like Pam or reach out to someone like me, get Pam's book, read her book. Her book is amazing, and it's only about a 3-hour read, and it gives great tips and tools and a guidebook for you. But not having the conversation and ignoring the white elephant in the room is not going. I used to always say, you know, it's a freight train coming, you just don't know when. So I had my colleague, unfortunately, she's dealing with this with her mother-in-law, and her husband were trying to, you know, get mom to have the conversations, and they avoided it and didn't have the conversation. Mom fell, ended up in the hospital. She died 2 days later. So now they're rushing. She's got to fly back to Oregon next week. She was in Oregon last week. And it was just one of those difficult conversations that her husband didn't want to have with his mother.
Yeah.
And that's hard, but it's kind of that you gotta at least say, hey, we care about you, and can we try to at least help get some help for you in the home, or can we look at maybe some sort of assistance, a community or something? Otherwise, they are lonely. Something will happen. Falls happen all the time. And, you know, if you can get them in a safe environment, it's best to at least have those difficult conversations. And it can be small dropping seeds of conversations. You know, you don't have to lay it on them, and validate them and ask what they want.
So true. And I actually, if anybody's interested, and maybe we do this for January, Paige, is how to have the difficult conversations, because I have a staged conversation about what you talk about in each one. Because we tend to like come on too strong and say,
and
look,
parenting,
you know,
we come on as if we're
parenting our
our
parents, and I hate that phrase, and I
that.
hate when people use it, because these are still your parents, and you need to have a conversation in the tone and word usage and respect and dignity that your parents have always deserved. They haven't lost their minds. They need your perspective and your curiosity. So how are you feeling? Are you noticing that you're having more trouble getting around the house? I noticed that there's a lot of dirty dishes in the sink. Is there, is there a way we can would you be interested in hiring a housekeeper to come in and kind of spiff up the place? Offering ideas and solutions as opposed to saying you need, or you should, or we should be talking about assisted living, dad, or mom seems to have, kind of lost it here. We use terms like that and they're harsh and they're mean, and we need to step back and be compassionate and kind and use proper wording and do this in small doses. Like no conversation should last more than 45 minutes because it's just too much, because they are scared, because they already see it. They don't need you rubbing it in. And then they also don't know what their options are. And they don't want things to change for either one of them. If they're spouses, it's terrible for a spouse to see another spouse diminishing. And you don't want to rub salt in that wound. So that's another really good question. So I hope everybody found this very helpful, because I know I learned a lot and I love doing this with you, Paige. I think this is such a powerful topic. So if you will receive the recording on Tuesday. That's how long it takes me to get around to getting it to where it needs to be. Then if you want to share it, please let other people know, and send them the link and say, hey, I thought you might find this information helpful. You don't have to say you need this. Again, kindness, compassion, dignity, and respect. But yeah, so please share this, because there's so many people. I guarantee you, at least 10 people who are in some sort of situation like this, who are afraid to mention it for one reason or another. And so, do them a favor and show them love and help, and just say, hey, I saw this, I watched it, it's pretty good. If you want to watch it, or share it with someone, please do. Okay.
There's one thing we can't change, and that's change, unfortunately.
That's right.
And so how can we be stewards of getting the information out to everybody and providing resources with joy and love? So
exactly. Well, thank you, Paige. Again, thanks to Koelsch Community. I love doing these Q&As with you. You guys, if you have topics that you would like us to cover in 2024, or have questions in between these sessions, please email. We either reply to one of my reminder emails, or reply to Paige, or to your Director of Community Relations, whoever invited you to this. Reach out to them, but Paige and I are here as your resources for whatever questions you might have.
Yep. And everybody, please have a wonderful and safe and fun and less stressful holiday.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving. And I'm going to say it. Merry Christmas.
Ho, and ho, Merry ho. Christmas. That's right. And happy Thanksgiving. So,
all right. Take care. Thanks again.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.